Yes. All right.
If everybody would just click continue, that you were agreeing to allow this to be recorded. Okay, so introductions. My name's Arena Van Breda, and I am the voter registration chair for the League of Women Voters of Fairfax. I've been in this job for a relatively short period of time, but I had some fabulous training by my predecessor, Bob Meredith, who some of you might know, who did this job with a great zeal and passion for several years. And he's moved up to Massachusetts to be close to family. And I happened to be the one standing closest when, the music stopped. I was left without the chair, so now I am the chair for this. But it is something that I believe in extremely strongly. So I'm happy to be able to do it, and it gives me a way to use up a lot of my excess energy and time. I retired a couple of years ago, and now it seems to be I'm doing this full time. You might be able to see I'm wearing my League of Women Voters of the Fairfax area T-shirt. I have a couple of buttons that I wear when I'm out doing stuff representing the league. Two of them are John Lewis, both as a young man and then as an older man, because John Lewis has been my inspiration for many, many years. And especially after his death just about a year ago, whenever I feel like, oh, this is just a lot of work and are we actually getting somewhere, I remember John Lewis, and then I realized that, yeah, we need to do this. Celeste Land is our Zoom administrator and part of the voter services committee for the league, and has kindly offered to be the technical whiz for this part of our training session. And I'd really like to thank Celeste for being willing to do that. She's done it for us many times in the past. And you got to say, that's the nice thing about Zoom, is all of us can be comfortably in our own homes and still get the information that we needed. And everybody's kind of introduced themselves. Nobody else has joined, so we'll just jump right in. So the purpose of today's class is to just kind of refresh everybody's memory about what we're doing with voter registration, how we're doing it, how to make sure we're doing it right. It is something that is extremely important. We owe it as an obligation and actually a legal responsibility if we undertake to do voter registration drives, which is an important part of the league's activities, that we do it according to law. So all of you, we are going to request, for those of you who haven't, will get to that website by the Virginia State Department of Elections and do their 40-minute training. At the end of the training video, on the same screen, you'll see affidavit. It's just below where the link is for the actual video of the training. And when you're done watching the video, you go to that link below there, and it will give you, it's just a one-page, very quick affidavit that says that you have listened to the training, that you understand the basic important principles of doing voter registration drives. That is a legal document. You are affirming that you will do this under penalty. And we'll go through what some of those provisos are. When you put your name in there, that goes to a central database that we will have. Oh, there's the app. Thank you, Celeste. And that way, if anyone ever has any questions that we are using people who are appropriately trained, we should be able to find your name in there. So if you don't mind just completing that. Okay. And all right, if you just pause right there, Celeste. Oh, right there is good. Part of that affidavit process asks you, I am requesting voter registration forms. Now, back in the day when we were doing a lot of paper voter registration forms, we needed that because it's just nice to have them here in the office or for you to have them at home. And right now we are saturated with voter registration forms. Very few people are actually doing the paper forms. So you can click none when you get to that part of the process. And then if you could just, scroll down a little bit further. Okay. And you've got to just check that you understand that, these are the important things when you're doing voter registration. You've done the training. You will give a receipt, and I'll show you what that is in a moment, to everyone from whom you take an application. You will return all of the forms no later than 10 days after the date you accept them, or before the close of registration if we're getting close to the voter registration deadline. We'll go over that as well. This is very important. You will not mark, change, add, delete, or pre-fill out any part of a voter registration application unless a voter actually asks you to do it. If you have someone disabled and they ask you to pre-populate some of the information because they're having difficulty with writing, you may do it under their direct direction, but you cannot change anything, you can't delete anything, you can't do anything else. This is a legal document and you cannot lose or destroy. I always feel like when I get a completed form in my hand, this thing is like burning a hole in my pocket. It's like, I've got to get that into the registrar as quickly as I can. And I feel this tremendous sense of responsibility because you really hold someone else's right as a citizen to be able to vote within your hands. So treat it with the appropriate dignity that requires. And then obviously, because of its protected personal information, you don't want to risk having anyone's social security number, which is required on the paper forms, made available illegally. So we'll give you an envelope that's opaque, and you're going to put the completed forms in there so nobody can copy it or see it inadvertently. And then you say yes, and you swear, and you put the date in, and you're all set. Whole thing takes just a couple of minutes. And that, again, is online. So you should be all set to go with that. Thank you, Celeste. That's great. All right. Any questions about that? We're a small group, so we'll just do questions as we go along instead of waiting till the end. If we're a larger group, I'd say. Yes, Linda.
And you say that form is available to us after we've completed the video. The form is, yeah. You can get it to pop up.
It's right there. When you go to the right webpage for the voter registration drive training, you'll see the video, and then right below it says, sign this affidavit.
Okay. Well, thank you.
It's on the same page as the video. So if you go to the first link that I put in the chat, the affidavit is down at the bottom of that page. So I've got both links, and I will make sure that everybody gets these links sent at the when we're all done too. So
Okay. So now, having completed that part, you will be ready to undertake doing voter registration on behalf of the League. We will ask you, and I know not everybody here right now is a League member, but if you're working on a site where it's a League-sponsored event, that we remember that we are actually undertaking to do this under the League's auspices. The League is a strictly nonpartisan organization. And we just ask that everybody remember that while they're doing this. You cannot in any way discriminate against people who want to register to vote, anyone who wants to register, as long as they are legally qualified to do that. And we'll go over that in a minute, but you have to allow them to do so. So everyone, when they're doing this, is wearing their nonpartisan hat. I have a lot of hats myself. I'm kind of a hat freak, and one of them is the nonpartisan League hat. So why do we do this? Well, because there are lots of people who are eligible to vote who are not yet registered. Frankly, in the Fairfax County area, most people, the majority, are probably registered or actively choose if they're not to be registered, but there are communities where there are huge gaps. COVID caused a huge gap in the voter registration numbers because where can people register? Well, you can register at the registrar's office. And those were difficult to access when a lot of things were locked down with COVID. Another very popular place for people to register to vote, and now it's actually by state law, they have to offer you voter registration when you contact the DMV, when you go in person to the DMV. Well, as some of you may know, DMV offices were closed during COVID. So that kind of cut down on the numbers. The other way people can register to vote is to vote online. They then need to know that that's available to them, and they need to feel comfortable with that process. There are a couple of websites that you should have fairly well ingrained in memory. At least I found it was helpful, because if you're having a conversation with people And they go, well, I've moved, or I need to update my registration, or I'm not sure if I'm registered or not. If they go to vote.elections.virginia.gov, vote.elections.virginia.gov, that will take them directly to the citizen portal where they can check their voter registration to see if they are registered, or they can update their registration if they're already registered, but they've moved or the name has changed. So vote.elections.virginia.gov. Very handy site, very easy to interface with. So we have in person at the voter registrars, in person at the DMV, online citizen portal, and then we're basically batting cleanup, because people who haven't already registered to vote in one of those ways, or may have had problems with one of those ways, are the people we're hoping to come across. We're also hoping to capture a new voter population, people who might have just moved in and just haven't gotten around to doing it, people who are in disadvantaged communities, which is why we're doing the food bank drives. The league has for many, many, many years had a highly successful high school voter registration drive where we're capturing that group of kids who is just about to turn 18 to make sure that they're ready to go and are able to vote in the next full election when they are 18 years of age. And that's where your voter registration training that you're getting today and you've done online with the state is going to come in handy. So let me just mention, since we were talking about the online site, and I don't know if we're going to get back to that, and I want to make sure you know. So when people go to register on the online site, the citizen portal, it is linked in through the Department of Motor Vehicles. So if you want to do your complete voter registration, if you have someone who wants to register, they say, I'll do it online. It's extremely helpful if they have either a Virginia driver's license or a state issued ID through the DMV. And why is that? Because when you register to vote, you have to have a signature on them. And when you sign for a driver's license or your Virginia identification card, Celeste has put up, this is in lieu of a driver's license, but works as a legal identifier issued by the state through the DMV, and this would work as well. So in Green Spring, particularly, since I know, Anne, you're in that community, in that area, is that right? I believe so. So a lot of people may not have valid driver's license, but they may have this instead, a Virginia state DMV issued identification. Those people can use that to do the online registration. So what about the people that don't have that? The DMV offices have been closed. People may not have been able to get their driver's license if they've just moved here. So what they are able to do, and again, this is helpful when people ask you questions when you're doing voter registration. They say, I'm going to register online. Great. Do you have a Virginia DMV ID or driver's license? No. Then what they can do is they can still do the online process. They then print out the application when they get to the point where they've got it all done. And then they have to go in and hand it in at a registrar's office so they can get the signature. At that point, what we tell them is, let us help you. We have an alternative, which is the old-fashioned paper voter registration form. And Celeste, if you have that readily available, otherwise I can share screen.
The registration form, hold on.
Oh, she's sharing, I can't share.
Here we go.
Okay, good.
Got it?
Right. Okay. So now we're going to go through the voter registration paper form, which will be used for people who can't do online or people that you are going to have come up to you while you're doing an in-person event because they're not able to avail themselves of these other options. Years ago, we did all paper applications. Nowadays, frankly, it is much easier for people to do online if they have that ability. Obviously, it's a little bit of a issue when we're the ones that are trying to get them to register to vote, because you have to trust that they'll go home and do that. At some of our upcoming voter registration forms, we will have a tablet computer where they will be able to pull up the portal, and while they're standing there with you, you can kind of walk them through the process to make sure it gets completed. But that's not going to be at all of our events. So we want you comfortable with this form. Okay, so first questions first. Who can register to vote? Well, they have to be a citizen of the United States, and they have to check that box. It's amazing how often people will get this and they just eye glaze right past that. Make sure that box gets registered. Everything that's starred on this sheet has to get filled out. So first, make sure that they've done that. Yes, they're registered. They have to give you their full social security number. Some people don't have a social security number. They have to check the box that says no, none was ever issued. The state requires their full date of birth. This is one way to make sure that they are going to be 18 prior to the next election. So anyone turning 18 on or before November 2nd of this year, because that's election day this year, is able to fill out a voter registration form. They don't have to wait until they're 18 to fill it out. You can fill it out for them now. When we were doing voter registration events at the COVID vaccination clinic out in Fairfax County, which we did this spring and early summer, we got a bunch of kids. It was like, well, I can't vote yet. I'm not 18. When are you turning 18? August. Come talk to me. I got a voter registration form for you. And they were thrilled to be able to do that. Gender is starred on this because the rules require being asked. Gender is however that person identifies, and it is no longer considered a significant omission if people do not fill that out. So this is not a critical thing. And if people say, well, is it my birth assigned? It's whatever, how they identify, and they can leave it blank if they prefer. Okay, last name, first name, clearly written, black and blue ink, no pink, no glitter, black or blue ink, and print it clearly. There's other things like junior, senior suffixes, if applicable, they should definitely do that. Very important, they fill out their full middle name. If they have no middle name, then they check none. A lot of people just put in their initial. That will not suffice. So, and if their middle name is an initial, you get a lot of that, Michael J. Fox or whatever. J is it's just an initial, that's fine. But if you're standing there and you're helping somebody with this, or you're checking it after they finished it, just confirm with them that that is their legal middle name is just an initial. Now, the residence has to be where they sleep at night. Cannot be a post office box. This becomes an issue for people who are possibly homeless.
And college students.
College students, right. And we can talk about college students because they are a separate category and they're very confusing. They cause a lot of potential headaches. But it has to be where they're sleeping, where they consider their regular abode. So if you have someone who is homeless and they, are at the underpass that's, at Green Street, where it crosses Washington Street, then they put, Green Street at Washington Street intersection. Because in order to be assigned the appropriate precinct for their actual voting, it has to be the place where they're living. You cannot have a post office box there. So just make sure people understand that. And there's a place to put the mailing address later if they don't have a mailing address. Okay. Now, email and phone are not starred. Encourage people to fill those out legibly, because if the registrars are trying to get people into their system and they have a problem reading part of the address or reading the name or a question about any of it, they will contact that person. If they have no email or phone number, they will contact them by snail mail. And we all know how great that works these days. So it's highly helpful if the registrars have an email and a phone number, and the cell phone number is fine. It doesn't matter. It's not mandatory, but just say, this will make sure that your voter registration form gets processed in the quickest possible way. All right, so now we're on section 3. Have you ever been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated? And it's an awkward thing to ask. You can, I don't make a point of asking that. I just say, make sure you answer that question. If you've never been judged incapacitated, or if you've never been in a felony, just put no and you're done. If they have, then they have to, if they've been judged incompetent legally or mentally, then they have to answer this question. And if they're not sure if their rights have been restored, later on, we will give you the name of a website where it's very easy for them. I'm hoping in the future, the website will be included on this form, because it's such a complex process to get your rights legally restored that a lot of people just don't really know. But if someone has not been restored, do not accept their voter. Just tell them you got to wait until that gets done. Okay, so section 4. For most people who can put a regular address in and are not one of the protected groups that's under the subparagraph under the third one, you can just ignore it. These are for people who do not have mailing address listed as their residence. So if you're military, you generally have a, what is it called, an APO or something address where your mail gets sent. So they're able to put in their mailing address below. And if you are a college student and you live in a dorm where the mail is not delivered to your dorm, but you instead have a post office box, you get to check the second of those boxes on paragraph 4 and put your address in below. Or if you're homeless, same thing. That guy living under the overpass at Green and Washington, I'm just making those things up because in Alexandria there's no overpass there, but whatever. But if you were a homeless individual and you live at the park and you don't get your mail there, obviously you would put in wherever you do get your mail, and it can be a post office box is fine. It has to be served by the U.S. Postal Service or a commercial post office service. And then there are protected groups that are listed down here below. Law enforcement, had a protective order, you're being stalked, you're a foster parent. Those people can check whatever box that is and then put in their post office box address, okay? Now, if they're registered in another state, they should list that in section 5, because the voter registrar has to double check and make sure that when they get enrolled in Virginia, they are removed from whichever state they were in. This makes the registrar's job much quicker, so it's helpful to do that. Interested in being an officer of the elections. Now, you're going to get a lot of people, I can just tell you from my own experience, who will tell you that, come up when they see what you're doing as a nonpartisan voter registrar, are going to start saying, it's like, oh, it's all fraudulent. You're registering illegal aliens, their preferred term. This is all fraud. The election's fraud, blah, blah, blah. An easy way to shut those people up is to say, if you volunteer to be an officer of the elections, you could see why what you're saying is not correct. And, we always need help. So feel free to jump in and become an officer of the elections. It would be helpful for you to understand why fraud is extremely rare in elections, virtually non-existent. Okay, and then this is the other important thing. Please, please, please make sure they've signed the thing, because the whole exercise is moot if there's no signature. So they must sign it. They must date it. They need to sign it themselves. If they are physically disabled for whatever reason, and you have at their direction only been filling out the form for them, you can check for them that they are physically unable to sign, and that will be valid. Now, at the end of all that process, we are required by the voter registrar's office by law to give them a receipt acknowledging that they have filled this out, with identifying information as to who has accepted that, and then it becomes legally responsible to make sure that gets to the registrar. This one has, you'll see at the bottom, a little scissors there, like you should cut that off and give them that receipt filled out. Well, the problem when you do that is if you rip it or cut it and it comes out kind of uneven and jagged, it will jam up the scanners when the registrars are running them through the scanners. So instead, when you do events with the League of Women Voters, we're going to make your life easier. And we have pre-printed little voter registration receipts. On it is the name of the organization, League of Women Voters, with our contact information. There is a spot for the date, which you can just fill in, and then you can just hand them to them. Okay, so they have a receipt, who's taken their information, the date, and you can keep that voter registration form intact. Yes, did you have a question, Margaret?
No, I meant to do a thumbs up.
Thumbs up, okay.
Yes, thank you so much for that, making it easier.
Does anybody have a question?
Yeah, if anybody has questions, go ahead. I kind of get on a roll and then I lose, I got to make sure but yeah, they'll be in the bags that we have a handy dandy little bag of tricks for you to make sure you're as stocked and fortified with the information that you need when you get going. Okay.
I would make one observation, which is that while it's true that registering online is more common and more popular overall, if you're dealing with folks who speak English as a second language, like you and I can look at that paper form and immediately go, oh, I'm going to go right to the good stuff. I don't care about this other stuff. I'm just going to check, 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 check. For them, if you have to read every single word and process it, imagine, doing this in a foreign language. It just is very time consuming, and it may actually be easier for them to do the paper copy than the computer because they're able to see more clearly what they need to do.
You're absolutely right. And what's even better, thank you very much.
Do they have these forms in Spanish or other languages?
I was just going to say, we have them in English, Spanish, and for the voter registration drives we're doing currently, we will have them in Korean and Vietnamese. Now, I mean, with the Spanish one, I can pretty well fake my way through. I know what most of the things are, but with the other languages, I would have a really hard time knowing, so you're going to have to use your English language version because it's kind of just follows that. And hopefully you'll have somebody who can translate, because when you get into other languages, but we will definitely have English and Spanish language ones. They will be pre-highlighted to make sure that people know what's the mandatory. We have a volunteer who's just phenomenal, who spent a lot of time. You can see it's highlighted in yellow for the things that really need to be filled out. And we'll have that in English and Spanish. And I'll tell you the other real problem, and with luck, the kindness of strangers will get you by in a lot of cases. But when I was doing voter vaccination clinics, there were a fair number of people in the immigrant community that were getting vaccinated. Now, these may likely weren't citizens, but you will have people who may have English, be completely non-English speaking, but also may be illiterate. And the truth of it is that just because people are illiterate doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to be able to vote. But that does become a little bit of a question is, they have to fill out the voter registration form themselves or direct you to do it, but then you would definitely need to have somebody who is a reliable translator. It's a little bit of a problem, but we will have, at least for those people who can read Spanish language and English language, voter registration forms for all. Let's see now. The next thing I wanted to go through, Celeste, if you would be nice enough to do it, is the vote by mail form.
Okay.
We have changed in the state of Virginia in the last few years from going from you have to have a valid reason to vote by mail to being anybody can vote by mail. And I will just tell you that the current plan for Virginia will be that there will be, in Fairfax County, there will be 3 sites throughout the county where people will be able to start voting early in person or voting by mail 45 days before the election. So it starts September 17th. So that's coming up really soon. The last 10 days of the voting period leading up to November 2nd. So from October 20th to October 30th, 10 days in a row, there will be a total of 16 sites in Fairfax County with voting, including on Saturday and Sunday, the weekend, not just prior to the election, but the election's on the 2nd. So November or October 23rd, 24th, both Saturday and Sundays, you'll be able to vote in person at 16 different satellite sites. There is no requirement to request to do in-person early voting. Anybody can walk in and you can go to any of the sites. It's actually very nice that people don't have to go to a site that's close to their home. If they're working or traveling, you can go to one of these. Like I said, it'll be up to 16 sites in that last period. Do you have the vote by mail form, Celeste, or not?
Yeah, can you guys see it? Oh,
No,
no,
I see the,
no, you can't.
I see the red dragon.
They're very cute, aren't they?
Very.
Hold on. Very odd. Here we go. Having a little technical trouble here. Bear with me.
Otherwise, I can, if you do give me the screen share, I think I might have it too.
Yeah, it's just, I do not have my Zoom screen. For some reason, my controls have vanished, which is not good. And normally, I just say, well, I'll log it out and log back in again, but then you guys would be kind of in a jam, so.
Okay, all right. Well, let me walk through it while you're doing it. Okay. So we will have these. If everybody just goes to speaker view, then you'll get a big screen of my I don't know what happened to it. I've lost everybody else. Is everybody gone?
Can everybody hear us? Thumbs up.
Yep.
If,
I can hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you.
okay.
Yep.
All right. So Celeste, could you undo your screen sharing, or you can't even do that because
I have no controls right now. How do I get my Zoom host back? How do I unhide my control panel?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to just keep going while
Keep going. I'll be back as soon as I figure out this. I've never had this one happen. This is new.
we will have the vote by mail application in your bags when you do voter registration events. Maybe not so much at the food bank one, because we're really concentrating on voter registration there. But if you're doing stuff at farmers markets or other community events, all of which we have, these will come in handy. And you can hand them to people, or you can help them fill them out if they have any questions. But it's all fairly self-explanatory. As with the voter registration forms, there is the unabiding or abiding issue of address, including, the residence address, which they have to have, and then they also have to have their mailing address. Now,
which form did you want, Arena? I've got them.
Vote by mail.
Vote by mail.
Ballot application.
There we go. Okay, can you see it?
There we are. So if people want to vote by mail, they'll have to fill that out. It disappeared again.
Disappeared.
College students are often the users for this, and you'll get a lot of questions about it. Now, if you could just leave that up, that's great.
There we go.
Yeah,
Much better.
this form I have not yet seen, because I think they're just printing them now. There may be a new form coming out for the vote by mail, but it'll be similar to this. Name, address, birthday, social security number, that's all pretty obvious. People who have not yet registered to vote should not fill out the vote by mail application form, because unless they're in the system, they can't get mailed a ballot. So just tell them, if they say, well, I want to register to vote, but I want to also vote by mail. It's like, well, first register and then wait until you get your confirmation that you're registered. They can get two ways of being confirmation. One is if they go to that citizens portal that we showed you earlier, vote.elections.virginia.gov, they put in their name, they put in the last four digits social security number, and it will tell them you are registered to vote, and it will give them all the specifics. In addition, they will through the mail, usually within 10 to 20 days after they've filled out their application and it's gotten to the registers, they will get a card in the mail that tells them you are registered to vote. It will tell them what the local precinct is, where they have to vote in person if they wait till election day, and they have to have all that like in the system and good to go before you can ask for a vote by mail application. Because if the vote by mail gets processed first, they're going to look you up, and guess what? You're not registered yet because you haven't done that part. So don't encourage or discourage people actually from trying to do both at the same time. Yeah, stay at the top part of that for a second.
Sure.
A little. Okay. Wait. Okay, good. Right there. So I'm applying to vote by mail in the general or Democratic primary or Republican primary. We do not register by party in the state of Virginia. However, if you want to vote in a primary, you have to request a ballot for the particular primary. You can't vote in both. And if you choose one or the other of it, does not necessarily mean you're a member of that party. It's just that for that particular election, this is the primary you're going to vote in. So some people get confused by that. And if, you got to explain to them, it doesn't mean you're calling yourself a Democrat or Republican. That's just the primary you're asking for voting to be. Actually, they didn't have a Republican primary this year. They had a convention, so it was a completely different thing. So filling this out wouldn't have helped anyway. It says here, do you want to vote by mail for all elections this calendar year? Yes or no? In the past, you could do that, and you would have to ask for it every year. Due to a change in the state law that took effect on July 1st this year, all of the people who have in the past asked for an annual, I want all my ballots mailed to me. I want to do all mail-in ballots for the year will automatically become permanently vote by mail unless they choose not to. So say, you got somebody who's housebound and they never can get to the thing, instead of having to apply every year to vote by mail, this will put them automatically, they're going to get their mail-in ballot sent to them. And that's new this year. Let's see. And once again, address where you live. So you're assigned to the correct precinct. Mailing address. Okay, so where do you get your mail if it's different from where you live? So now this becomes an issue, or can be helpful with the college students. College students have a couple of options. They can continue their primary residence because that's their long-term, if they're in school, they may be moving dorms every year. They have summer places to live, they're back and forth. So it's not really permanent residence at their schools. They may choose to maintain their permanent address at their parents' home, and they are going to list that as their address, but they want to get their ballot mailed to them. So they can put the place where they are currently getting their mail.
Yeah, like my daughter was in college in Pennsylvania, and so she would fill out one of these forms and have it mailed to her in Pennsylvania, even though she was a registered Virginia voter at that time.
Right. So, so that's helpful. Now, some college students say, well, I'd really rather have my vote count, for the local elections where I'm at school. in which case they'll have to list their residence there and their voting address there. But then they have to remember to change it when their address changes. Another important reminder, people will tell you, well, I'm about to move. I'm going to be, by the time the election comes, I'm going to be living, in the next town over. Can I just put in my new future address? You cannot do that. For the voter registration form, they have to give the address where they're currently living. If they're going to move in a couple of weeks, you could tell them, you know what, why don't you wait instead of going through this process twice and just go online and do it once you've moved to your new location. But you cannot give an address where you're not currently living. Okay, all right. And the rest of that's also fairly self-explanatory. There's a thing for the military, but they're pretty plugged in. The military voters know how, they've been doing this for a long time. Okay. All right. So that's, I think, enough about that. Were there any questions for that? Okay.
Does that form require a witness?
The form does not. This is only the application to get the mail-in ballot. Now, you raise a good question, though.
Well, what do they do with the witness requirement?
There is a witness requirement.
Mhm.
When you get your ballot, and there's very careful instructions on it. It's a little complicated, which I think is bad when you're asking, seniors to go through this in a step-by-step fashion. But when you get your mail-in ballot, you are required to fill it out, have a witness sign on an envelope that you were the person who filled that ballot in. The witness signature was waived last year because of the COVID epidemic. The state of emergency that allowed them to waive the witness signature was suspended at the beginning of July because we thought we were out of COVID. So at that point, and currently right now, you again need a witness signature. There is a move afoot in the legislature to make the witness signature go away permanently, but that'll be contested and that might take a little while. However, I think there's at least a fair chance that we will be back under a COVID emergency protocol during the next election. The Delta variant and all of that. I was in healthcare before I started doing this, but there's a really good likelihood we're going to be in bad situation once again with COVID. So if the governor declares a state of emergency as a health issue, public health emergency, people will not need to have their absentee ballot witnessed. But the ballot is separate from the application. So that's where we are right now. Okay, so we did that. Now, you will have a nice little notebook at any site you go to for us that has reference materials. I've been referring to many of these as we've been going along. And we try to make sure that we have information that's pertinent to whatever the event you are doing is. It will include a voter registration form, English and Spanish. It will include the mail ballot application. It will include a list of the valid voter registration IDs, because that's changed also recently. And you have that one, Celeste, if you can pull that up again.
Which one would you like?
Voter IDs.
Voter IDs. Okay.
So in Virginia, in the last 2 years, I think, they have changed the law. It used to be you had to have a photo ID, and it had to be a valid photo ID, meaning not expired. However, that's changed. You no longer have to have a photo ID. I still recommend, if people have, why would you not just give me a driver's license if you have your driver's license or your official ID card? But there are a lot of other things that okay, so this is very handy. The very top, it says Virginia driver's license may be current or expired, which is handy because, if you haven't had a chance to get to the DMV because it's been closed, an outdated driver's license is fine. And most of these other things will be photo IDs. However, if you scroll down a little bit, you can now use a college ID from anywhere in the United States. I'm pretty sure I'm looking. Or at least from the state of Virginia. Yeah, no, it has to be a Virginia state higher education or high school ID if it's got a photo on it.
Yeah. Hi, this is Carrie. I actually worked the last 2 elections, and I just want to, it's not here, but as a reminder, they don't actually, your address on your driver's license does not need to match the address that you're giving the poll worker as what the address you're using to vote with. So if you're recently moving or anything like that, it's not called out there. But your driver's license address, they're not checking addresses. They're just checking
Identification.
your
You
name.
are.
Yeah,
You
your
are.
person.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's a very good point. Thank you, Carrie. If you scroll down a little bit lower, there are circumstances in which no photo ID is needed. And it's right there. Stop. A current utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck containing the name and address of the voter will work. So if people have utility bills, as long as it's sometime within the last year, will work, which was not something that people were able to do in the past. And as a reminder, we've had to update some of our materials because this one has been slow in getting out. And then you can see that there are a couple of things that are not accepted. So that document, the whole list of what's legit and not legit for ID forms will be in your handout. So if people have a question, again, when you're doing voter registration, that's not as big an issue. But if you're doing get out the vote stuff, as we get closer to the election, that may be helpful. Okay, thanks, Celeste, on that one. We do have, if you could go to the voting is secure, voting by mail is secure. This is a little list of talking points that one of our very long time and very well-versed members came up with, Sydney Johnson, is to help counter the arguments that we're hearing increasingly from people who claim that if you vote by mail, it's fraudulent. And she's marshaled a lot of good points to kind of counter what's out there as misinformation. So you can refer to that. And it even quotes sites as varied as the Brennan Center for Justice, which does a lot of voting rights and voting access work, as well as the Heritage Foundation, which is a bastion of a more conservative perspective, but they endorse this viewpoint as well. So that's in your little handout. All right. Now, a couple of reminders. Those are the major things that we are going to ask you to be comfortable with and to be aware of. When I say comfortable with, we want you relatively conversant with these things. No one expects you to be an expert on every little variant because there's a lot of variations and a lot of individual circumstances that come up where you go, I really don't know the answer to that question. The thing to do at that point is you can direct the person to call and speak to the registrar, the general registrar in Fairfax County, if that's the locality where you are. They're really very helpful and they will try to get the information to you. And there's also a website for the registrar where people can direct their questions. But you could always try to call me. I have my cell phone with me pretty much all the time, and unless I'm, totally out of communication, I will see if I can track down the information to you. I certainly won't promise to know it, but I can at least have an idea as to where we can find it. So don't feel like, all of that has to stay in your head all the time. We have the reference materials for you. You can, what is it? And that quiz show, you can call your,
Call a friend.
call me. I'll be your friend for this. So don't stress. This is actually one of the most rewarding activities you can do. You are representing an organization, the League, that has a 101-year history of informing and empowering voters. And nothing is more empowering than to allow people who are legally eligible to be able to vote and vote easily. Yeah, I can promise you that every single time you get someone registered or just able to reassure them, answer their questions, you're going to get just an incredible high from that. It's wonderful. Um, this activity rewards itself. It really does. When you are, let me tell you a little bit about the kinds of things that we're doing currently, so you are aware. And I'm going to encourage you to put all this newfound knowledge to use in some of our voter registration drives. And I will send you a list of the current signups that we have. We use this website, Sign Up Genius, which is actually pretty easy to use, and you can pick and choose the things that you're interested in doing. We have an extremely, I think, useful voter registration drive that we're doing in conjunction with some of our local food banks. And this is being done through a grant with Feeding America and the Capital Area Food Bank. We will be going to 5 or 6 sites regularly through the next few months where people are there to pick up their food. We want to make sure that if they or a member of their family is eligible to vote, that they have the information to allow them to do that. We are giving them information to encourage them to register. We will do the registrations on sites. Included in the information that you'll have in the bag when you do events for us, this is our current little flyer that we developed to go out, and I can't see it, but it's English one side and Spanish on the back. And so just hand this to people, and hopefully they'll get the information and the idea for it. You will notice at the bottom here, there's this little QR code. And this is, I wanted to be sure to remember to tell you about this, because we use QR codes not only on our flyers, but we have these nice sandwich boards. And I don't know, Celeste, if you still have available from the last time we did this, do you have the picture of the woman taking the photo of the QR code?
I do. Let's see if I, you have for what month it was we did that training?
May.
Okay.
So, and I'm doing this, and I don't want to insult anybody, but I needed a course on how to use QR codes when I started doing this. And a lot of people are like, what is that? And how does that work? Well, the young kids all know this because they do that all the time. They know you just open your camera function on your cell phone and you point it at the QR code, and it will immediately come up and say, do you want to go to that website? And the website will be the Virginia's Department of Elections Citizens Portals. So if people don't want to register with you, if they just point their phone to that little QR code, or they do it off of our signboard, that will allow them to open up that voter registration form right on their phone. And we actually had kids doing that during the vaccination clinics. They're like, oh, I can register? It's like, yeah, here, get your phone out, do that. And they did it, and they were done. It takes 2 minutes. So if people say, well, what's the QR code? You say, open up your cell phone, go to the camera, point the camera at it. You don't even have to take a picture, just point it, and it should open up to the website right there. So that's a handy thing. There was a young woman who was like, oh, this is so cool. And she just took it off the signboard, and she was good to go, and she was on her way. And let's face it, a lot of people, when they're doing the food bank stuff, they want to get their groceries, they want to leave. So at least this gives them the tools to be able to do that. Yes, I saw a hand up.
Yes, my question was, in order to get the camera to translate this QR code, do you need to have an app on your phone for that?
The newer phones, at least my experience has been, for most phones, iPhones will open up directly to the site or ask you, do you want to open this up? And my Samsung does it too without an app. There are specific QR reader apps, but I don't think on most phones these days that's
necessary.
Really
okay.
So just a camera, and you don't even have to take the picture, just point the camera at it, and it's good to go. I love showing that to people. They go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Like, yeah, you can. Okay, so the food banks will be going on several times a month we start this week, and they're all over the county. Generally, it's 2 to 2.5 hour stretches where we're asking for volunteers to volunteer. There will be canopies, so it is outdoors, and that's a good point because we're back in COVID caution land. So we do encourage everybody to wear a mask, and I've told all the volunteers, your safety comes first. So if someone comes up to you and starts talking and they're not wearing a mask, feel free to tell them, I'm vaccinated, but I really prefer if you're wearing a mask if we're going to have this conversation. Your protection comes first. And I think that the recommendations currently for everybody to be masking if you're in close proximity to someone where you don't know their vaccination status is a smart one. But if we're outdoors, it's lower risk. We will have chairs and canopies, so you're protected from the elements to a degree. We are not expecting people to go out in gale force winds, with rains coming down. We do not do events where people's safety would be at risk. So no wild weather. And we've actually stopped doing a lot of the outdoor events if we don't have shade available, because it's just not appropriate to ask people to be standing out in the sun when it's 95 degrees. But for the food banks, we'll have canopies, we'll have chairs. We recommend you wear masks. In addition to the little flyer I showed you, bilingual, we are handing out things like, and hopefully most of you know this little thing, the Facts for Voters. This is a handy little booklet that's got contact information. I tell everybody, and it's true because I double check, I tell everybody, in here is contact information to reach anybody you would need. And it's got Fairfax City as well as Fairfax County officials, but it goes from President Biden to the dog catcher. And I love the dog catcher is in there. Okay, so animal control's in there. So, and yeah, you could find it on the website, but honestly, this is one time where it's actually a lot easier to just get the information there. So if they live in Fairfax County, Fairfax City, we hand these out, people love them. So that'll be in the little bag of tricks you have. We have Vote 411 cards. We have these in multiple languages: English, Spanish, Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, and Arabic. There might be more, but I think those are the main ones. I will tell you, we've been able to update the Spanish language one, so it is now completely correct, including the fact that people should bring their ID to vote, but we removed the words with photo. The English language one still has official photo ID. If you're sitting at an event and it's quiet and you don't have anything else to do and you have these in your bag, just take your little pen and just rub out the part that says photo. It's okay to do that. Anyway, so we have those. So those are materials we'll be doing at the food banks. Let me just mention one other very important event that we're looking for volunteers for right now. And that is on September 28th, it's National Voter Registration Day. There's a great organization of which the League of Women Voters is a partner, League of Women Voters US. National Voter Registration Day this year will be September 28th. The deadline to register to vote this year will be October 12th. We are trying to get everybody, as many people as we can, registered prior to that deadline. September 28th is a great day to do a big public event because there will be a lot of social media about it. There will be a lot of attention paid to it. We're going to do events at all of the Fairfax County Public Library branches where we have volunteers to help, that is. So that's where you come in. But as you know, there are a lot of branches, and because our jurisdiction as a league overlaps exactly with that of the Fairfax County Public Library, we thought it would be really great if we had members from each of our, as many leagues, units and unaffiliated members sitting at one of the libraries. That'll be an indoor event, again, with a table, with all of the materials I've already showed you. And it will be just a big push to make sure that people are either registered or have updated their voter registration. Now, we've been concentrating right now on making sure people are registered, But it's also important to remind people that if you've moved or changed your name, you need to update your voter registration form. And the way they can do that easily is that same website we've been giving you, vote.elections.virginia.gov, the citizen portal. Or if they don't want to do that, then you go to your paper voter registration form and they fill it out again. Because if you got a name change, they need all that information and they will change it so you're updated. That's a little strange. I think people are like, wait, I'm already registered. It's like, yeah, but they need to have the updated information. So you still got to fill it out and hand it in. But so September 28th, 2-hour commitment, pick the league branch, the library branch that's closest to you, and come and join the fun. We will have nice materials for that. There'll be some materials actually from the National Voter Registration Day organization, as well as from the league.
Questions for you, Irina.
Good.
First question is, when you go to Sign Up Genius, it can be a little intimidating doing this the first time around. Are you encouraging folks to pair up when possible, to pair up with somebody more experienced?
Okay.
Or are you encouraging them to just go out there with trial by fire and go by themselves?
Okay. Well, for a minute there, you worried me. It's like Sign Up Genius was a little intimidating. It's like, I thought that was a pretty easy form to fill out.
Not Sign Up Genius, the prospect of going out, of signing up. You know,
I figured that out as you were talking. It's like, oh, that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, obviously it's always fun to do it with a friend and a buddy. You know, get someone to go with you if you can. However, for the National Voter Registration Day, since it's a one-day thing, if you're the only person there, anything you can accomplish that day is better than if nobody's there. So yes, take a buddy or find someone who's already signed up and join them. So you have someone, most of the people doing these will have participated in the high school voter registration drives, which are a tremendous amount of fun. And we've got a whole unit of the league that does just the high school voter registration. You want to have a real feel good, positive, you know, endorphin rush. Do the high school voter registration drives because it's so great. These kids are so excited. You go, congratulations, you're gonna be registered to vote. And they go, that's it? It's that easy? And they're just like, they're thrilled. You know, this makes them that much closer to an adult. And it's just very celebratory. It's a lot of fun. But you can do this on your own. I'm very confident we've given you the resources and the training to be able to do that. But don't feel bad if you say, yeah, I'd rather do it once or twice with someone else and then find a buddy. What other questions did you have for me?
The other question is the tablets. We talked about this a while back. Does League have tablets to loan out for these registration drives, or should we be bringing our own?
The League has 2 tablets, which obviously means that, say, on an event like National Voter Registration Day, where I think we have 18 library branches to cover, we're not going to be able to do that. And frankly, for those, it's really mostly giving out information and giving people, and we will have flyers with the websites for the people who just want to take a flyer and then go home and do it themselves. At some of the food bank things, we will be bringing the tablets so that we can actually hand people a tablet, let them fill it out, make sure they're doing it right, they can submit it, and then, you know, it's done. If people want to bring their own tablets with them, I mean, I use my phone as my walking resource. You know, if I need to look something up, I just do it on the phone, but you can bring a tablet if you want, whatever's easiest. But it's just nice to be able to confirm quickly. It's like, wait, let me double check that. But we're going to try to have as many resources in your hands in that little binder that I talked about, including dates. When is the deadline to register to vote? When do you have to submit your vote by mail application? What's going to be on the ballot this year? We're still waiting for that because there's going to be at least one school bond issue, but I'm not sure if there are more. But once those things are developed, we'll make sure they're in your bag or in your reference folder. Okay, what else can I answer for anybody? Because we're actually, we're pretty good on time. Questions?
Margaret's got a question.
Should I just go ahead and ask it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned the binder, which is wonderful, and all the materials. Is that something that we pick up at Hummer Road, or how do we access that before, let's say, I'd like to sign up for the National Voter Registration Day event?
For that, we are going to have a bag of all the materials. The folder, the binder will be in it. Every time I say binder, it makes me think of Mitt Romney. Remember him? Binders
Full of women. So will that be at the library, or so we can pick it up at the library?
We're working out those details. My hope is
Okay.
we're going to have them at the library. While the Hummer Road it's a nice central location, but I really don't want, people driving hither and yon all over, especially if you have to go on the Beltway. It's like, don't do that if you don't have to. So we're going to try to have them in the libraries. And I have to say, it's a thrill because I guess years ago, the league used to, and I'm a relatively new member myself. I just kind of jumped into this feet first, typical fashion.
Good for you.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you wonder, it's like, maybe I should have thought about this a little more. But I joined last year, and like this year, and now I'm the chair of the voter registration. It's like, wait, how did that happen? The music stopped. I was the only one left standing. But we got such an enthusiastic response from the Fairfax County Public Library. We said, hey, we'd love to do this with you for National Voter Registration. They were like, this is great. We would love to have this. We really love working with the league. And it was just like, okay, all right, we'll wrestle up the volunteers, which is what I'm doing now, to do it. And but we should, as a result, be able to have materials there on site. You just walk in, all your stuff will be there. And again, we'll make sure you have the resources, and then a backup. Worst comes to worst, you pick up the phone and call me. I will be available all that day. I'll be working at my local library in Sherwood Hall. But all right. And at the food banks, we are probably going to have materials. We're going to manage to make sure that we get things to our volunteers, as they need it. Because we have a lot of volunteers and a fair number of sites, sometimes it involves a little shuttling things around, but we'll make sure you have what you need. And we're going to try to cut down to the extent possible on people needing to get over to Hummer Road. It may happen. I can't promise it won't ever, but we'll try to minimize that. What else?
And for those who haven't seen it, I noticed it was in the link to the sign up Genius is in the latest newsletter that went out. I think it was either yesterday or today. Yeah. Yeah,
this morning at 5 o'clock, I should have gone out, and it's links to everything. The food banks, the libraries, farmers markets, although we kind of laid off doing those in the summer. It's just so hot to have people out, and we can't often have canopies at that. And like I said, I don't want people getting heat stroke because they're being good volunteers working to build democracy. So any other questions from anybody else? Okay, I will leave you with just one or two last thoughts. There are league t-shirts available on the back. Excuse me for being rude. But you should be able to say, democracy is not a spectator sport. You can order one. I would love to make it that we can give all our volunteers t-shirts, but I haven't gotten the approval to pull that off yet, but feel free to order one. We do encourage people to identify that you are with the league. We're handing out league materials, and if you're a league member, please either wear a shirt. There will be badges or pins that identify you as a League of Women Voters volunteer. If you're not a league member, just make sure you are working with a league person if it's at a league sponsored event, just because that way, when you're doing this under our auspices as a voter registration drive, we're covered. They have patriotic scarves, like a flag scarf and stuff like that. The high school people
sometimes it's easier to put on a flag scarf than it is to put on a t-shirt, and sometimes it's easier to put on a t-shirt than
right. And those two, of course, are sold. If you go to the league website, you can buy a flag scarf. But honestly, the most important thing I think to wear, besides your league pin or identifier, is a smile. Because people, we have the advantage. Not all of you are in the same group, but a lot of us volunteers fall into the, nice little old lady age group. That's until they talk to me for 5 minutes and they realize the nice no longer applies. It really, we have the advantage of being, it's like, oh, League of Women Voters. we have a very solid reputation, and we're generally non-threatening people. And so people are very willing to accept the information, and they know. And I start every conversation, absolutely every conversation. Hi, I'm with the League of Women Voters. We're a nonpartisan organization. I get that out first because you will get a little pushback. People kind of want to say, oh, you're working for the Democrats because we believe in registering people to vote. That's become a partisan issue. Or whatever they're going to say. Is like, no, we are nonpartisan, proudly so. And so we just get that out and then wear a smile. And if you got that covered and a few other essentials, you'll be good. So thank you very much for attending the class today. I hope you found it helpful. And feel free, you have my email, you have my phone number. I will send you updated information, including the Sign Up Genius links to all the things we're going to do. I hope I see you out there helping to register voters and to strengthen our democracy by getting as many people to participate as possible. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and weekend.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
This
This was
was
great.
Bye, everyone.
thank you.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yay. Oh, I'll turn it off.